So I have up next Patricia Walls. She is not only a speaker, she's a friend of mine. Uh, and she's going to be talking about Hall of Records. This is beyond the Akashic Records. This is something that she's been working with for the last, I want to say 30 years or whatnot. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about her right quick. Patricia Walls is an international speaker, spiritual mentor, artist, author, alternative healer, and empowerment coach. She is highly respected in her spiritual community as an expert in light language and spiritual growth and empowerment. Patricia has been teaching and guiding individuals on their spiritual journey for over 35 years. She is passionate about helping people discover their true potential and reach their highest level of spiritual growth. She has written several books on light language and spiritual growth and empowerment, and she's been featured on numerous interviews, podcasts, and radio shows. Patricia is a passionate advocate for spiritual growth and empowerment and is dedicated to helping people to find their true purpose and reach their highest potential. All right, so we're going to get Patricia on here. Patricia, can I get you to turn on your camera and unmute? And I'm going to pop you in here. Hey, how you
Hi
doing?
there.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's great to be here.
Yay. And you came in so beautifully. Everybody else is having some kind of issues, it seems like today on this big
Well,
energetic jump that we're having today. So
well,
I'm glad you
hopefully,
didn't have
hopefully
any of
my
that.
internet is gonna going to cooperate today.
Oh no, it's going to. How about that? All right. So today, Patricia is going to be talking about Hall of Records. This is something that she created. This is something that she teaches. You have a whole program and everything over this now, too, don't you?
Right. The
I'm
it
gonna.
was it was
I'm
it was so endearing to hear her talk about the beings because up
right.
until I met Dolores Cannon, no one else had referred to their guides, helpers, aspects as the beings. Now everybody's saying the beings, and so I don't feel so odd now. But yeah,
Right.
the so the beings that I work with um, encouraged me to share the information on the Hall of Records through at first it was through sessions with people, and then it was, oh, you need to write a book, and then it was, well, now you need to offer courses, and so it's expanded exponentially since I first stumbled across it. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I'm going to let you take over and talk about all of that. I have you highlighted here, so I'm just going to let you take off, and I'll see what questions may come up in the box. Everyone, you can comment in the Q&A box, and I will relay any questions at the end.
Okay, good. Well, my name is Patricia Dancing Elk Walls, and I have been working with energy and spirituality um for about 40 years or so. I stopped counting for reasons that everybody understands, I'm sure. um in that, I started out with shamanism, doing journey taking people on journeys into the earth to meet the earth mother. And at one point, the guidance that I received was, take them to the Hall of Records. And my question, my response was, "What is that?" And so I was I was led to lead this person into what they call the Hall of Records, and I was told that this is the place that you go to resolve. contracts, agreements, promises, blood oaths, commitments, even curses and hexes, relationship things. So over the years, it has really expanded. I've developed it over the years, and I fully understand that the universe doesn't give knowledge to just one person. And after becoming public with what I know about the Hall of Records, after holding workshops and having sessions with people, I found that most people have been going to the Hall of Records for a long time in their own personal journeys, and they just didn't know what it was. And so I'm happy to be able to bring clarity to people in that way, and also to give them some guidance on how they can use it to help themselves. And so the Hall of Records, just like the language of light, belongs to all of us. When I first started taking people to the Hall of Records, it seemed as though it was a place outside of themselves, but throughout the practice and throughout having these sessions with people, I discovered that the Hall of Records is really inside of you. And before I wrote the book, I did research because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't duplicating anyone else's work, that I wasn't stealing is not a good word, but that I wasn't taking someone else's work, what someone else had put out there. And so I did research to find out what was out there. And the only thing that I found was Edgar Casey's reference to the Hall of Records as a place that holds all of the records for everything underneath the Sphinx, and as a physical room. And then the only other references that I found were some archaeology and architecture references to, sorry about the shadows, to places, physical places that held records, public records, legal records, third dimensional kind of records. Well, that's not what we're working with in the Hall of Records. So my understanding about the Hall of Records is that it is inside of you. It is a place where you go to resolve contracts, agreements, promises, blood oaths, whatever all of that is. And over the years, I have started doing other work there, like clearings for people. I've done past life regressions for people in the Hall of Records, because it is inside of us, it is the most sacred and protected space. And so I take people there. I'm trying to think of, Shanna, do you have any questions yet?
I don't yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
So people have asked me, what is the difference between the Hall of Records and the Akashic Records? And I love this question. I love questions, by the way, if any of you have questions, because questions make me go inside and ask my guidance. And so every time someone asks a question, I get to learn new information because I'm a channel. And I get to ask the question, and I get to receive new information, new knowings, new understandings. And when I asked what was the difference between the Hall of Records and the Akashic Records, I was told that the Akashic Records is where your book is, your book of life, your soul history. And it is, most people, when they go there, they see a book on a pedestal. That's what I saw when I went. I saw a book on a pedestal, and a book. I want to stress a book on a pedestal. And this book contains all of your soul history. Why are you here? what lessons did you agree to? What relationships did you agree to, and can you change those? And what I learned is that in the Akashic records, you cannot change anything. And as a side note here, I took 3 courses in the Akashic records because people kept trying to convince me that what I was doing was Akashic records. And so I kept saying, no, this is not the Akashic records. And so I took 3 courses with 3 different people because I didn't trust the first one or the first 2. And they were all the same course, of course. They gave all the same information. Um, so I learned in the Akashic records work that you can go and look at your book of life, that you can go into the healing room, you can ask questions, but you cannot make changes. And for the entirety of my existence here in this body, I've had the knowledge that we live in the law of free will, that God's source gave us free will. For me, free will means that, yes, I might have agreed to suffer, but I can change my mind, you know? And so that's what we do in the Hall of Records. We go and look at the contracts, the agreements, the promises, the blood oaths, even the curses and the hexes, and um, any judgments, even condemnations, any bindings, anything that takes any form that is restricting you or blocking you, we can work with that. And because of the law of free will and because it's your records, you have the choice of changing that. In essence, what you're doing is you're changing your timelines, you're changing your blueprint. And through this work, I've seen people's lives change. I've seen people's lives shift in amazing ways. So this is what happens. I like it when people ask questions because I don't just ramble. Otherwise, I ramble because I'm a storyteller and I may go in severe circles before I get to the point, but I will
It's
get to the point.
okay. You're good.
Yeah. And so what I learned is that, well, also through my work with past life regressions, is that although there is no past, present, future, right? There's only the timeline that you're on now, the multidimensional life that you're existing in your 3rd dimensional body right now, this minute, the one that you're working with, right? And so sometimes events that have happened in your other aspects, your other forms, bleed over into this life experience. And when it bleeds over, it causes trauma, it causes blocks, it causes distortions. When you clear those up, then those traumas clear, the distortions clear, the blocks clear. So, for instance, is someone is experiencing problems with money, and there could be a whole host of reasons why someone experiences troubles with money. One of those is that in one of their past existences, they abused money. And so they made the agreement that in this current existence, they would suffer or they would have less money so that they didn't abuse it. And so when we go in and we ask for the records that are related to hardship with money in this life experience, and that contract or that agreement comes in, then the client has the choice of destroying that contract, agreement, promise, blood oath, whatever form it took. They have the choice to destroy that, and in destroying that, they are not changing, we're going to call it the past. They are not changing what happened. They are not changing the creation of that agreement or whatever form it took. They're changing what happens from this moment on. And so, because that has come up a lot, people sometimes have had problems, clients have had problems changing things because they would say, well, I don't want to change the past. What happens if I change the past? Well, you're not really changing the past. You're changing how the past is affecting you in the here and now. You're removing the bleed over, so to speak. And so the way that we do that is I love taking people to do their own work. I don't say I don't. I rarely ever do work for people. I would rather take people to do their own work. I would rather lead them to do their own work. And this is the reason. Most people, or most people that come to me, when you tell them that you remove this curse, they take that with a grain of salt. They may believe it, they may not believe it, and belief is everything. So if you tell someone that you remove this curse for them and they have questions about it, they have that monitor that goes, I don't know if that's even possible. Most likely it's not. And most likely nothing shifts in their life. But if you take a person, you have them do the work, then they know it happened. They know they did it. And it actually becomes a living thing. And so what I do is I facilitate a journey to the Hall of Records. I call for the records for that person based on my intuition for whatever issue they're coming to look at. And then I give them the option of destroying that record. And because of the law of free will, they have an option, right? Even if they said they wanted to go and take care of this, once they're there, if they change their mind, then they change their mind. But they have the option of burning or destroying that record. Yes, it does include illness. It does, because everything is an agreement. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but everything is an agreement. We have some people call it a blueprint, right? Whenever we come into this existence that we're in currently, we came with a blueprint. We came with a plan. Down to the most minute millisecond of your life, you have planned everything out. And you can always change the plan, though, right? And so sometimes we came here with an agreement to experience illness for whatever reason. There could be a million different reasons why someone is experiencing illness. They could, it could be what they consider to be retribution for something. They could be experiencing an illness to help someone else learn a lesson or to help someone else resolve a relationship with them. There are a whole host of reasons. There is there's a story about this couple. They weren't my clients, but it's a good story, so I'm going to share it. This couple were both experiencing cancer, and they were afraid. They were afraid of death. They were afraid of cancer is not an easy thing to experience, and although they were in the midst of it and they were afraid of death. They were suffering physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and so they had gone to this practitioner and wanted to find out, why are we experiencing this? And through a series of questions, and that's the way that this person worked, through a series of questions, they discovered that it was their way out. They had gotten themselves in such debt with the IRS that they felt that death was the debt death was their only way out. And so their form of death that they chose was cancer. Once they realized that, the cancer disappeared. It resolved itself. They didn't need it anymore. They found another way to deal with the debt of taxes. And so they didn't need cancer anymore. And it just resolved itself for both of them. And so I love that story because it's a perfect example of the law of free will. We have complete control over our lives. It's just unraveling. It's a matter of unraveling. How did we get here? Why did we choose this? And how can we resolve it? And that's a lot of the work that I do in the Hall of Records. So,
Well, I
what
guess
other
I
questions?
would have a question. You answered someone's question that said, would this include illness? So that I believe that encapsulates all of that. I guess what I would have a question about is if you're changing your contracts that you made before you came here, does that change the soul growth that you decided that you needed to have in this lifetime? And if it does that mean they're going to have to come back for another lifetime? I know
Yes
that
and
just
no.
made I just made your head hurt, didn't I?
No. Yeah, yes and no. Yes, it changes everything. So
Okay.
you already know this, but people listening may not.
Right.
It's the ripple effect, right?
Hmm.
So when you are the butterfly effect or whatever you want to call that. So when you make a change to your blueprint, i.e. your timeline, whenever you make a change, then something else falls in, right? Because there can't be any empty space. So something has to take that place. If you've made this kind of change that we're talking about, the something that takes its place is positive, right? And also, when I take people to the Hall of Records, um, based on intuition, always, um, there are times when I will have them create a new contract, create a new agreement, something to take the place of that thing that they destroyed. But do they have to come back and do that again? No, because once you destroy that agreement that you made, it doesn't exist anymore. It's not necessary. And
Because you
like I said,
decided it wasn't necessary to do whatever it was that you did set in motion, I guess you could say, for this lifetime.
right.
Right.
So, but we're dealing with several, there's never one way to look at anything, right? Um, Grandmother Spider reminded me one time that she has 8 legs. And she said, there's never one way to look at anything. There's always possibilities. And so when you're looking, so we're going to go back to the financial aspect, right? Taking someone to the Hall of Records to resolve their financial worries, woes, whatever. Um, it depending on why they have those. Okay, so we're going to say that I think the example was they abused money in the past. And so they agreed to suffer in this life money as retribution, or I don't like the word karma, but to limit themselves in this life experience because they abused it in that life. There's something about the psyche too. Once you go and you look at that and you go, oh, you know, that was another life experience. I might have abused money, but this is an entirely different life experience. And I don't have to worry, I'm not going to abuse money in this life experience. And the psyche flips a switch and you go, oh, I don't need to worry about that. So we're not going to worry about that. And your money changes, your money situation changes. So so why would you need to experience that hardship in another existence. You resolved it in this one, but there's always a but. But what if there was another aspect of the money? What if you agreed to experience money hardships in order to help someone else? Because there's always that. Again, going back to the blueprint, right? Where we mapped out our entire life existence. So what if a person made an agreement to, we're just going to use the example of a homeless person, right? So what if a person agreed to lose everything that they have and end up houseless, homeless, on the streets, and they're there and they're suffering. And then this person comes along and they have this interaction and it changes that person's entire outlook on life. That's not by chance, right? That was an agreement for those two people to meet at that moment, that place, that time, and have that interaction in order to help that other person. So we can't really say that the homeless person deserved to be homeless, or that, they had abused money in the past and now they had to suffer. What if the possibility is that they agreed to lose everything so that they would be in that time, that place, in order to help that person? So it's not always, it's never this or that. There's always so many different reasons that everything happens.
Right.
And in that case, no, you wouldn't need to experience that again, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, do you see whenever you intuitively help people with these contracts, bindings, whatever they may be, um, do you or they see why they had done that? Just like you said, maybe he had abused it in the past. Is that something that comes forward, kind of like the Akashic, where they can see everything? Can they see why they did the contract in the Hall of Records?
Not all the time. I have taken people there, and during the session, some people have gotten complete remembrances, right? You might call it a regression. So some people have gotten complete remembrances, just awarenesses, insights, not me telling them, but themselves, of why they have that. And when they do that, then I would, the facilitator would say, okay, well, let's call for that record and let's resolve it. Let's destroy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's always different when I take people there, because there's the blending of their frequency with my frequency, my knowledge with their knowledge, and it I want to say plays together, right? And it creates what they agreed to create. I know it's doesn't sound like I'm explaining it very well, but
No, you're explaining it well. You just don't think you are, but you are.
um, so can you read the records? No, you cannot read the records. That's the difference. I would say that's one of the differences between the Hall of Records and the Akashic Records. In the Akashic Records, you go and you look at your book of life, and you or your practitioner are usually able to not read it, but gain an understanding of what it is. Uh, I've never had anyone do that in the Hall of Records. People have tried, because when I call for the records, for instance, when I call for the records for the person, they will show up in whatever form they take. And remembering that life has existed, this universe that we live in has existed, some people say, for more than 950 billion years. And we have taken all different kinds of forms. We're not always human, of course, and we have lived in every form that is conceivable, and even just energy. But even just energy could be an entire lifetime. I've got some interesting stories about that for another time. But so when I call for the records and the records show up, they're not always going to be books, because there weren't always books. There were tablets, there were stone tablets, there were petroglyphs, there were writings in the sand, there were the fire letters. There's all different kinds of forms of the information, just like forms for life. And so when those show up, it's very interesting to see how they show up. But you can't read those, right? A lot of those you can't read. And so you just have to get an intuitive feeling for what it is. And sometimes you just have to trust that if I'm calling for a contract, an agreement, a promise, a blood oath, and you have piles and piles of stuff, whatever form it takes, appear in front of you, common sense says that's a lot. I don't know what all that is, but I want to get rid of it. It's usually the response for people. I don't know what that is. I don't care what it is. I just want to destroy it because that's a lot. And so at that point, I have people destroy it by fire. And throughout my practice, throughout the development of this, when I started out, because I didn't have anyone to teach me this, I was just going by intuition and sort of fishing, what do I do now? And when I first started out, I would have people stamp it debt paid, strike through it, if it was a contract and that they could see. I would have them destroy it by whatever means their creativity came up with, based on what it was, because if it was stone, they would break it up, right? But in the later years of my practice, I've just gone straight to let's burn it, because basically everything is destroyable by fire. I mean, fire is the ultimate tool to destroy anything. Even stone will break apart in fire. It gets so hot that it just explodes. And metal melts. So, I mean, I've had people, shackles, for instance, they would just burn the shackles and they would melt. And then I would maybe, depending on what was going on, I may advise them to create something beautiful out of those shackles, or to take the melted metal and send it out somewhere, away from them. Just, it's each hall of records is different. It's never the same. So,
What would you say was your most unique record that maybe came around with someone?
the one that comes to mind is I had a family referred to me. It was a son, two sons and a mother, and they were experiencing bad health. They were experiencing financial problems. They really felt as though there was a curse against them. And intuitively, they kind of knew where the curse came from. They had the feeling that it was related to the ex-husband and father, that he had somehow cursed them. And that he had worked with dark magic. They all had the feeling that he had worked with dark magic. And I usually don't work with those type of situations, uh, but I was told to work with them. And so I did. I took them to the Hall of Records. I called for whatever records was creating this. And um, yes, it was a curse that the father had put on them, but it went deeper than that. It went through all of the father's bloodline. So it was a curse that was handed down. And in this situation, I had them individually. I took them one at a time, and I had them remove any blood because it was a blood curse. The father had done blood magic, and I had them remove, intentionally remove the blood on them and return it to him and reclaim any of their blood. It was very involved. It took a couple of hours to do it for three people, but that's the most unusual case I ever had. Um, so we removed the blood curse. We removed any DNA that he had access to, and I say we. They were doing the work. I was just leading them. And let's see, blood, DNA, any emotional ties. They destroyed any emotional ties to him, and it did absolutely. They did refer back to me, and it absolutely made a difference in their life. Um, but what I loved was leading them to do the work instead of me saying, "Okay, I remove this, this, and this." There was the whole process of witnessing and watching them, um, and watching their faces as they intentionally pulled out any blood that belonged to him and sent it back to him, and then brought back um, any blood or DNA that he may have had and place it back in their body, washed clean, of course, purified, washed clean. But I love doing this work because there is a template for doing the work, of course, because I have a course, but it's never the same. There's the basic template, but it is always based on individual cases and individual psyche and states of consciousness and intuition. So it's always different, which is why I love doing it. I learn something new every time.
So do you find that it expands and it grows as you work with it more? And do you expect that with people that you're teaching and taking the courses that it'll expand, like you said, you have the base, but then it'll expand to other things and beyond what you maybe even can think of right now?
So one of the things that I learned throughout my time here is, and I've taken a few courses from other people, right? Of course.
Right.
And in those courses, there was there was always the hard set rule, right? This is how you do it. You never deviate from this. This is what's worked for me, and this is how I want you to do it. Never deviate from that. I Energy is always in movement, right? Nothing ever stays the same. And so, why would we stay the same in our practice and what we offer to people? And so, one of the things that I stress to my students is this is the template. I want you to use the template, but I want you to use your intuition. And if you're using your intuition, then you're not mimicking me. I don't want someone to mimic me, right? Because everyone brings their own gifts to the table. And so, for instance, a couple of my students are Reiki masters, healers, most of my students already have a practice, by the way. They're just adding this to their practice. And so when I'm watching them practice in the class, I'm watching them practice with the other person. I'm always noticing little subtle, differences. Like there was one person in the last class. I'm sort of, I'm sort of, do it, when I lead someone to the Hall of Records, it's that, it's pretty fast the way that I take someone. And so I was witnessing this lady, in a practice with one of the other students. And she started out and she went, "How are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? Are you relaxed? I need you to breathe. I need you to relax your body. I need you to connect in. Do you feel safe with me?" That's not me. I don't do that. Right? It's like, take me to the Hall of Records. Okay, what do you see? But she was very, what would you call it? Methodical. She was very compassionate. She was very gentle with,
Maternal. She was very
yeah,
maternal about it. Yeah.
yeah, with this person through the whole process. She was always checking in. How are you feeling? Are you okay with this process? And that's what I'm talking about. Everybody bringing their own style, bringing their own knowledge and wisdom, right? Um, so I never ask anybody to be limited. I don't like to limit people. I am pretty firm in the do no harm rule, right? I am pretty firm in do no harm. I am pretty firm in it's their journey. They have to do the work, you know. Um, but other than that, because it's different every time I take someone, it's different. And so why wouldn't it be different for my students, right? Why wouldn't their experiences always be different? So whoever is practicing the Hall of Records, with each client, they're going to expand. They're going to learn more information about the way the world works, the way the universe works. They're going to learn more information about spirituality and all of the workings of it. I mean, when I first started, I had no idea that there were blood curses, or any of that, but it came up in a session and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's a real thing. This is how I deal with it."
Mhm.
And so it is a practice where you can expand in your creativity, in your connection to source, in your intuition, because you have to use your intuition in order to guide someone, right?
Right.
How are we on time? I don't have a clock with them.
Oh, we got about 10 more minutes before I
Okay.
start introducing our next speaker. I don't have any questions from anyone yet. Um, I think you've answered a lot of the questions I had. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
So the one thing that I have added most recently in the Hall of Records was taking people there to do clearings. Because that's one of my things. I wrote the book Feeding the Wolf Within and Conscious Enlightenment and Expansion based on my experience and teachings of clearing your fields. And I found it more beneficial to take people into the Hall of Records to do those clearings now and to realign their energy fields in the Hall of Records, because it is inside of you, right? It's not outside of you. And so I found just the quality of work that's done there by people is greater because they feel more at home. They feel more safe, in that place. So speaking of that, there is a book on the Hall of Records offered through Amazon. It's offered in all four formats: book, paperback, hardback, Audible, and Kindle. So it's offered all those ways on Amazon.com. My website is hallofrecordsofficial.com. I am offering classes in practitioner and advanced practitioner. And what else regarding the Hall of Records? I think
So if
that's
they
it.
want to sign up for one of your classes, are your classes in person or are they on video or
Both,
both?
both. So when I give a live class, I also offer that they can take it through Zoom.
Mhm.
I have it simultaneously in person and Zoom. And I do record it, of course, because it's on Zoom. And so the participants get that recording, so that they can review it because it goes pretty fast. And they get the recording so that they can review that. And
How long are the courses for?
the course is 2 days, 5 hours a day for 2 days for the practitioner. The advanced practitioner is set up a little bit different. It's not a live course. It's working with me individually one on one. And what we do in the advanced practitioner is we meet however often they want to meet. They will tell me what their experience has been, and we work to expand that. So it's not really a course that is timed or even end.
Okay. So if someone just wants a session with you, how long do those usually take?
30 minutes. I find that we can do a lot of work in 30 minutes. And that's on the hallofrecordsofficial.com. You can go in through my Calendly and book one of those. There are 1 hour sessions, but we get a lot of work done in just 30 minutes. So just depends on what a person wants to do.
Not exactly on the Hall of Records, but I did mention the light language. So do you do a combination of that all together sometimes whenever you're doing these sessions with people for Hall of Records? I find that my stuff has a tendency to overlap everything.
Right. Yeah. So
So,
yeah, I was telling someone that my on my Calendly, I at one point I had you can book Hall of Records, you can book light language, you can book past life regressions. I tried to separate it all out, and some of it is still separated out, but in essence, I can't separate it. And so, yes, whenever people are in the Hall of Records, light language usually comes through.
mhm,
And the purpose of it coming through, I have found that it comes through to help them because light language is codes and frequencies, alignments, healings, whatever. And so it helps them to shift that even faster using the light language.
right. Yeah, I find that I tried to do the same thing and separate it all, and my guides go, just call it a session. You're going to
Just
use
a
it
question.
all. You're going to
Yeah,
use all of it. Just do
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's my crock pot of work, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And even in the Hall of Records, like I said, sometimes a regression happens. You know, that's just what's called for. So a regression may happen while you're in the Hall of Records. But
Right.
and while people are coming for a regression, light language usually pops up, and the Hall of Records may pop up as well. So yeah, they all blend in, don't they? It's why we
Yeah,
learn.
they really do.
It's
Yes,
why we're given these gifts. We're not given them to limit them.
exactly. Yeah. Gosh, is there anything else you'd like to go in and add before I start introducing Bill Holman here in a moment? I know y'all know each other. That's how I was actually introduced, was through you.
I love Bill and Catherine. Catherine was already on, right?
Yeah, she was on before you, and now I have Bill coming up here in just a few minutes. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, as you know, I'm at a trade show today, but I'm gonna pop in my Bluetooth and try to listen. So Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk about the Hall of Records and my work. And thank you to everybody who's listening in.
Right.
And contact me if you want to experience this.
Exactly. And they can get your book on Amazon and where can they order it on your website too? And
Um, they can order it on the website. Yes.
okay.
And if you order it on the website, then it's signed. Of course, you
Oh,
don't have a signed book on Amazon, but yeah,
right.
through the website, I sign it before I send it out.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Well, it looks like Bill is in here. I'm fixing to introduce him. Thank you so much, Patricia, for coming on and being a part of this conference. I always enjoy talking to you. I've known Patricia for a long time now. We were vendors together. She said she's at a show right now. I miss everybody. So I'll be seeing everyone soon. All
Okay,
right. Well,
thank
I hope you
you.
have an abundant day and an abundant weekend while you're there.
You as well. Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks.